My whole life I trained to become a guardian of the dragon gem, but this world has changed, and its people are divided. Now to restore peace, I must find the last dragon. Barry, I made cookies this week. Yes, I did. And I made berry cookies. Berry cookies. I couldn't resist. Barry, go over here by the dragons. There you go. You might be wondering why there's 3 dragons, a tiger, a stitch. The brick is obvious. Okay, so I have reached the conclusion, or the last Disney review that I'll be doing for a little while, in regards to the animated features, for the feature-length animated features or so. So, reviews / discussions I've done on them. So obviously I started way back with Snow White, and now I've reached Raya and the Last Dragon. And I by the time I'm recording this, yes, I know that there is Encanto, which I have not had the chance to go see yet. It's only been out for like a week or a week and a half at this point in time, 2 weeks-ish. I haven't had the chance to go see it yet. I will hopefully be able to see it either before the end of the year or just after the beginning of the year, give or take what's going on with schedules and parties and Saturdays and work and dad and everything. As I've stated before and stuff, usually I tend to watch Disney movies with my dad. Not that my mom doesn't like Disney movies. She does. She's the one that I'm working on. We're working our way through Once Upon a Time at this point in time. Which, at the time that I am recording this, we are to the point where they're getting very close to finishing up the arc where they're in hell, or when they're in the Underbrook and everything, and dealing with Hades and everything. And when I'm done with rewatching the series, I do intend to do a video where I kind of go through and talk about the different acts of true love, or the different times that we see something that is like an act of true love, or true love's kiss, or something along those lines. But that's got at least another month, 2 months, 3 months down the line, give or take, before I get to that. But this video is going to be my review of Raya and the Last Dragon, which came out this year during the pandemic and everything. And the movie itself was made mostly by the animators and the crew and the directors and the voice cast from their homes, with lots of Zoom meetings and calls and scheduling and everything like that, and like with the actors having to make soundproofed areas in their homes, or having soundproof tents for them to use for recording purposes, or recording in closets, or different things like that. Which is a very apt way of kind of this movie kind of ended up being this kind of interesting way of describing the pandemic. And even the directors and the writers and even the actors have stated this at times, that it kind of became a very good analogy for everything that happened during the pandemic. For that we were all kind of divided and everything during the pandemic, and kind of the end of the movie is kind of this very hopeful ending that hopefully the world can learn from. So, Raya and the Last Dragon is actually the first Southeast Asian Disney-based movie. They've had Jungle Book takes place in kind of, I think India is the area where Jungle Book is supposed to take place in, but it doesn't really delve into the culture. And there's some other places or some other things that are referenced occasionally, but for the most part, Raya and the Last Dragon is this big feature film with, probably with Raya being the next Disney princess. She's even stated to be a princess in the movie, with her possibly Namari as well, I guess, may end up be considered a Disney princess, but I don't know. Down the line, or at this point in time, that neither of them have gotten an official Disney coronation. Then again, technically, I don't think either have Elsa and Anna, and I don't think either has Moana. Not an official one, I don't think, but Moana is kind of a Disney princess at this point in time. Like Raya has been kind of put into the Disney princess category at this point in time. But that's a completely different topic. So this is going to be, if you hear the dog barking in the background, I apologize. This is going to be my review of Raya and the Last Dragon, which I have now watched a total of, I think, 4 times, which I do very much like it, and I'm also kind of astounded by the fact that, like, I managed to work my way through the entire, most of the Disney animated movie catalog in less than a year, with, you know, starting with Snow White and all the way through, and it's almost a total of 80 movies at this point in time. Actually, off the top of my head, it's very close to almost 80 movies, or it's like just at 80 or so, in regards to that. Plus, in that time frame, I've also, seen, some different Marvel movies and gone to theaters and seen other movies and everything like that. So, do this. So the movie, we basically get like a prologue at the beginning of the movie. We see, we learn about the history of this land called Kumandra, which had originally been this kingdom that has this great shape around it that looks like a giant dragon. With water in the middle and like spreading out all over the place and everything. And like 500 years ago, the people lived in peace and harmony in like some of these different lands that kind of specialized in different things, but they all pretty much lived in pretty good peace and harmony. And there were dragons, and the dragons like brought the rain and helped keep things peaceful and everything among the humans. And then one day there came these things that were called the Droon, and they began to ravage everything. And the Droon would attack people, and it turns them into stone, where they basically end up being in like this position, and they don't age. And what happened was Droon was raging against humanity and causing so many problems in Kumandra and turning people to stone and everything. The people aren't dead, they're just stone. And the dragons, one dragon specifically in the story, named of Sisu, uses her power to create this thing that's called the Dragon Gem. This will be the current representation of the Dragon Gem. Because I didn't have anything better, and it's pretty. So we're going to put the Dragon Gem over here. There you go. I hear the dog in the hallway. But she made this dragon gem, and she used her power to, as they say, boom the Droon away, to just blow the Droon away, and kind of just like destroy them or so, keep them at bay. And she, sacrificing her power, kind of like was turned into the gem itself and became housed in the gem. And all the other dragons had been turned to stone, and all the people that had been turned into stone were revived. And then over time, very quickly, the different lands or the different sections of the kingdom turned into these different kingdoms within the kingdom. So there was Fang, Heart, Tail, Spine, and Talon. And, each of them kind of had like their own specialties and like their own kind of certain culture, but they all still share the same language and the same still basic belief system. But they have like, different cultural things that they do inside of each place. They all dress differently and have kind of different regional things and everything. And what ends up happening is, they all kind of are divided against each other, and that's the way that it's been for 500 years. 500 years later is where kind of our story starts, and we are introduced to this young girl who is Raya, and she is the daughter of the chief, the princess of the Heart tribe, of the Heart Kingdom. And for the past 500 years, Heart has been the guardian of the Dragon Gem. And her father, Chief Benja, is kind of like giving her like a test, and she has to, sneak her way into this temple, and we meet like she has to like get all these different traps out of the way and everything, and she has her little pet Tuk Tuk that is adorable, and I want one, and if I can find a stuffed animal of it, I want it, just like I want Bruni from Frozen 2. I want ones of these, and Poa the pig from Moana, I want them, because they're so adorable. But Moana makes her way through the Moana. I say Moana pops into my head. Sorry. Raya, Raya makes her way through the temple, and she has to then kind of fight against her father in order to prove that she is now worthy to be considered a protector of the dragon gem. And we get this nice fight sequence between her and her father, and like she's using these sticks that she uses to fight with, and her father has like his sword that he doesn't take out of the sheath, and he's like, you won't step a single foot or a single toe on this inner circle, and in the middle of this circle is the dragon gem, which is just like kind of floating there, and it's very pretty and blue and everything. And Raya does manage to get one toe on the center, and so she passes the test, and he kind of initiates her into being one of the guardians. One of the things that I did love that they did with Kumandra with the different areas is they built up different things that would be in each area. And with Heart and with each of the other areas, there's like different different places have like different food that they make, or different specialties from different areas, different textures and colors and textiles go into their clothing and into their architecture and everything like that. And I loved how they did like all of this, because it's just like there's certain parts of this movie that like you don't see inside some of these different areas, but all of these different places, like they built everything up because they need to do that for the world. Just because it helps the designers and it helps them be able to understand this world, including like even the language for the world, which I love how they did that. And what ends up happening is Chief Benja then tells Raya that he has invited the chief members, the leaders of the other 4 tribes, to come to Heart, so that way they can try to take a first step at being Kumandra again. Because he has this, not, Raya describes it at one point as like blind faith in people, and I don't think he's giving them blind faith. I think that he is putting this as he's willing to take the first step, to be the first one to say, we can try to do this. We can try to be Kumandra again. We can try to be better than what our ancestors have been for the past 500 years. And he tries to teach that to Raya, and the way that he does this is that, like, he tells Raya that they're coming, and she thinks that it's just like, oh, they're coming to attack us to try to take the dragon gem. And she, like, comes up with, like, plans and everything like that, and he's like, no. I thought we'd invite them for food. And he, like, makes this soup that has, like, I think it's, like, shrimp paste from one place, and, like, lemongrass and bamboo shoots, and, like, palm sugar, and, something else. It's, like, from one thing from each of the 5 regions. And we see him make this soup, and like it makes it very delicious, which is based on like actual soup that's eaten in the Southeast Asia area, because they have like spices that are coming up from India and spices that are coming down from China. So it's like all these spices meet in the middle area here, and they're kind of they developed food and different tastes and different recipes that way and everything. And they put that into the movie, and I love that that there's like so much food that's in this movie. And what ends up happening is, everybody, the other chiefs arrive, and we meet the other chiefs from the other 4 kingdoms. And Benja does this moment, and I'm like, every single child has had this moment with their father, where there's like big moment, and the father's like, I'm going to open with a joke, and the child is just like, please don't. It's like all those moments where you're just like, oh dear God, please just don't, just don't, no. It's like that look on Raya's face. And Raya actually ends up kind of being this first one to step forward in this case. She kind of steps down from where her and her father are standing, and she walks over to toward where the kingdom of Fang is, their tribe, with Queen Varana and her daughter Namari. And Namari is pretty much about the same age as Raya. And she and Raya kind of end up connecting, and then like everybody like heads in to go and have food and feast and everything like that. And the other kingdoms have actually kind of accused Benja of the fact that Kingdom of Heart has like so many riches and everything because they have the dragon gem. And like both Benja and Raya are like, no, that's not true. We don't get power from the gem. That just happens to be where the gem is, and the Kingdom of Heart happens to be around it, but they don't get any necessarily extra protection by having the gem there. It doesn't make their land more bountiful. Or at the very least, they don't intentionally use it to make their land more bountiful or anything like that. But what ends up happening is, Raya and Namari are kind of bonding and talking. It's just like, discussing things. Do you like swords or hand to hand? Do you like, fancy dresses or more, more, comfortable wear? And like there's the bonding and having fun and everything. And like, they're talking and just like relaxing. Like, hey, we're both kind of dragon nerds, as they call themselves. Um, and Namari actually gives Raya this pendant, which is a beautiful pendant, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different pendants based off of it coming out of a Disney, or have been already. That is, like the dragon of a Sisu with like the gem in the middle. And Namari gives that to Raya as a gift, and then Raya, kind of going off from what her father has told her about, you have to give people a chance. You have to try to show people that I trust you so you can trust me, type of thing. And Raya takes Namari to where the gem is, where the dragon gem is, and it basically backstabs. Namari and Raya end up fighting, and then Chief Rana heads off, and her and Benja and the rest of the tribes are like racing up to where the dragon gem is, and there's this kind of big kind of fight that happens, and the dragon gem lands on the ground at one point, gets knocked down, and it shatters into 5 different pieces, into different, size, shards. And in the moment that they shatter, the Drunes suddenly reawaken and reappear, and they start, turning people to stone. And each of the 5 chiefs grab one of the different pieces of crystal, and then they run out. Benja has been injured at this point in time, and Raya is trying to, get him out of there. And they're on part of this bridge, and they realize that, the Drune don't like water, because like it tries touching water and it can't go under the water. So Benja, basically in a last-ditch effort to save his daughter, tosses her over the bridge just in time before the Drune get to them, because he can't run any faster because he was injured. And he tosses her over the side of the bridge with his sword, and Tuk Tuk is with her too. And she falls into the water, and like the last thing that she sees of her father is like him being turned into the stone statue. And, then we kind of cut to 6 years later, and we are introduced to Raya again. She's now full grown. I don't remember. I think she's supposed to be like 17, 18, 19 range at this point in the film. So she's, 12, 10, 11, 12, 13 range at the beginning of the movie. And what ends up happening is we're kind of reintroduced to Raya, and for the past 6 years, she's been trying to figure out what she can do to try to fix things. She has a shard of the dragon gem, and then each of the other 4 chiefs have a shard of the dragon gem. Whether or not there's anybody really like left alive in Heart is kind of left up for debate, because like so many of the people there, because that's where the Drune first attacked from, start causing problems and everything. And like we see Raya, and she is currently in the land of Tail, the section of Tail, which is way at the other end of the map. And I love how they literally designed the map for this movie. I love it, and it's beautiful. And it's very, very helpful for this. And what ends up happening is Raya has been traveling around, and basically, so for the past 6 years, she's basically had to like take care of herself and Tuk Tuk, because she now has Tuk Tuk. She still has Tuk Tuk, but he's like much, much bigger now. He's full grown, and he's her source of transportation, because he's like an armadillo and he can like roll up, and then she like rides on top of him as he rides around, and everything. And that's just kind of really fun that they did that with. I love that how they did that with Tuk Tuk. And Raya's just like whee, riding around on him. But we also see that the Drune have taken a toll, because we see like stone statues all over the place. Tail has basically been turned into kind of a wasteland. And Raya is slowly working her way through looking at all these different ends of the river, because when her and Namari were talking when they were kids, Namari tells her, and she shows her this kind of scroll about like what they think happened to Sisu, that after Sisu used her power to, get rid of the Drune, she kind of went dormant. Her power went dormant. The crystal, the dragon gem, is still like in Heart, and still, at the time still going and, protecting, Kumandra. But, Sisu kind of like fell into the river and then like went downstream all the way to like the end of the last stream, or like the very last stream, or the end of the river, or whatever. And we see this map that Raya has, and she's been like going through, and like we see her like having checked off like all these other different rivers ends all over the map, and there's like one left, and she's like made her way to that one, and it's like she's got like one more effort that she has to try to summon, Sisu. And she makes like this little, she finds a literal shipwreck that's like the end of the river, and she goes into the ship, and she sets up this little like kind of altar type thing. And she does this prayer about I want to fix Kumandra and everything. Please come back as Suzu. I just really want my Ba back. I want my dad back. And it's one of the movies, it's one of the other Disney movies that is very much kind of a father-daughter story. Mulan falls in the same way that, Mulan is very much a father-daughter story. Yeah, Mulan kind of falls in love with Shang throughout the movie, but the impetus of Mulan is literally her relationship with her father, her love for her father, and not wanting to see him go off to war and then die. And in this, Raya's impetus is she wants her dad back. She, the last person she had, he sacrificed himself for her, and she just wants her father back. And I can't blame her for that. I would like to hope I'd, do the same thing if I was in her position. But what ends up happening is the water around her starts to like move and coalesce, and then it does form into Suzu. And we have this beautiful moment where it's like the water comes together, and it bursts out, and a Suzu appears, and then we get more of an interaction with Suzu, and she is very much this kind of little bit of a scatterbrain, and like her and Raya are like talking, and she like Raya's like well, the dragon gem, yeah, I need you to make another one. No. So Suzu, no, I didn't make the dragon gem. My brothers and sisters made the dragon gem. You know how it's like if you have a group project and like, everybody works really hard, but there's one kid that doesn't work as hard as everybody else, but they still get the same grade. Yeah, that's me. I was not that kid in school. I worked very hard on group projects. Mostly because by some stupid reason of default, I ended up usually being the one in charge, which is not fun. Well, depending on the project, was not fun. So I was not a Suzu in this case. I would have been like one of her older siblings. But she's like, my siblings all put their power into the dragon gem, and they're the ones that created it, and then I'm the one that like released it into the released it to get rid of the Droon. And she doesn't realize that it's been 500 years since then. She just thinks it's like, oh, the next day and everything. And like Raya has to like give her this whole explanation as to what happened, and she explains, and Suzu goes, "You broke it." And I love Suzu. She's great. And what ends up happening is, of course, and Suzu is blue. That's why Stitch is over here, is because Suzu is blue and Stitch is blue, and I don't have any blue dragons. I'm sorry, I don't have any blue dragons. I wish I did, but I don't. And Suzu and Raya kind of come up with this idea because Raya gives Suzu a piece of the gem piece that Raya has, and she gives it to Suzu, and Suzu starts to glow. And she's like, oh, this is a power that belonged to one of her sisters. I don't remember if we get it. I think she says Brawny or so. I might do another video where like I just break down all the powers that like a Suzu has and like which sibling they came from. I'll think about that. I haven't quite made that decision yet, but at that point in time, Raya's just like, okay, so we need to go find the other gem pieces, and she explains. So each of the 5 chiefs of the different tribes have one of the gem pieces. So we just need to go and get all of them back, and then you take all the power to yourself, and then you can boom the Droon away. And Raya and Suzu make their way to this temple in Tail. And they, there's like traps everywhere. So just like Indiana Jones, they have to Indiana Jones the place, and, like work their way through it and everything. And like Suzu is starting to see how little trust Raya has in other people, how little trust she has in anybody that's not like Tuk Tuk. And they have to work their way through this temple. There's booby traps, and they get to where like the tail chief is, and like the tail chief is dead and like literally sitting in like a booby trap with like the gem in her hand. And like Raya and Suzu have to get across to her, and Raya has like her dad's sword, which is awesome. And it like is like an extendable sword, which is just already just so cool to deal with. And like, Suzu is kind of like hindering and helping, and like, just like very funny all over the place and everything. And they get to, Raya gets the gem and she gives it to Suzu, and Suzu absorbs the power from it, and then she like shapeshifts into a human. And she then decides, she's like, oh my god, this is so great. Now it'll be so much easier for us to get the gems and everything. And then at this point in time, we are reintroduced to Namaari. Namaari at this point is now all grown up and everything. She is, of course, still the daughter of the chief of Fang. 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 And what ends up happening is Namaari and kind of like her group arrive at the temple where, Raya and Suzu are. And, Namaari says, until a few months ago, I thought you were stone. And, you stole the dragon scroll. And, now you're out stealing gem pieces. And, she doesn't see that Suzu. She doesn't quite see that because she's, Suzu is, in her human form at this point in time. And Raya and Namaari kind of have like a back and forth, and then, Raya and Suzu end up escaping, and Namaari and her group head home, and Namaari goes and speaks with her mother. But I'll get to that in a minute. But first what ends up happening is Raya and Suzu are escaping on Tuk Tuk, and they end up getting onto this little like shrimp boat restaurant that is piloted and run and cooked for and managed and captained by Boone, who is like this little, I think he's like 6 or 7 or something like that. He is a kid. But like, him and, he's, got them on the ship, and like they're, going to be heading off and everything. And, because like the Namaari's tribe Fang ride around on like these giant cats. So cats don't like water, so they're on this boat and they're going. And what ends up happening is, the ship's not going very fast. So Suzu like jumps into the water, changes into her dragon form, and she like grabs onto the bottom of the boat, and then she just like uses her tail as like repeller, and like makes them go really fast. So that way they can get away from Namaari and the Fang people. And because, Raya had asked Suzu what her power was, and Suzu was like, I am a very strong swimmer. Okay, Suzu, we'll put you at a race against Michael Phelps, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah. So, Suzu is very good at swimming, and then we get this great underwater sequence of, like, Suzu swimming around through the, through this giant dragon-shaped lake area on their way to Talon, because that's where they're going next. And Raya and Boone are kind of talking a little bit, and then, Suzu comes back onto the ship, and, like, Raya explains to Suzu that, you can't let Boone see that you're a dragon. And she's like, why? And Raya's just like, well, we don't know if we can trust him. And like, he gives them food because it's a restaurant ship and everything. And, they're just like, we can't eat this food. We don't know if he tried to poison it or anything. And and Boone's just like, why would I try to poison you? And she's like, to steal my purse, to take my sword, and to take my tuk-tuk. And he's like, good points. But if the stuff is poisoned, you're going to die happy, because he's like has a lot of, confidence in his cooking. And what ends up happening is, Suzu is just like very, very trusting and everything in regards to that. And they, Suzu eats the food and everything. And Raya, I think, kind of relents and eats the food. Raya also has a habit of, apparently, Raya can't cook very well because she tried to like make dried jackfruit jerky, which don't ask me. And like apparently it tastes horrible. And like Suzu was just like, I don't want to eat this anymore. And what ends up happening is they arrive in Talon, and once they're in Talon, Raya's intention is to go to where the chief of Talon is and get his dragon gem, sneak in and steal his dragon gem. Sisu says, well, you should bring a gift for him. And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. And she, Raya goes off. And Raya ends up having to deal with the Khan baby and the Ungies, which are these monkeys. And of course, the Khan baby, later named Little Noi. Uh, and, Raya has to deal with the Khan baby, and that's just, a whole sequence of events there that's just kind of funny. And Suzu decides that she does want to go and help Raya. And she's like, but how am I supposed to get a gift? And, Boone gives her this example of like, well, you're an adult, use credit. And she's like, what's credit? He's like, it's kind of like a promise that, you'll take something now and you'll buy something now and then you'll pay it off later. And she's like, credit's awesome. And she's like going through and like grabbing stuff. I'm like, I'm buying this on credit. I'm buying this on credit. This is on credit. And she's like going through and like grabbing a bunch of stuff that's going to be like gifts for the chief. And at this point in time, Raya is has convinced the Khan baby Noi and the Ungies to help her to distract the guards so she can sneak into the castle. And she sneaks in and she tries to find the chief, and he's not there because he's been turned into stone. And then we find out that, oh no, he's not chief anymore. And Suzu using credit doesn't work very well because nobody in this town knows who she is. And they're just like, why should we trust you? Why should we give you credit? We don't even know who you are. And then there's this old woman that shows up, and Suzu kind of blabbed a little bit about purse and coins and dragon gem pieces. No, wait, no, we don't have those. No, and the old woman is revealed to be the current leader of Talon. And she's actually quite ruthless, and she basically kind of tries to hold Suzu hostage against the Droon to try to get the gems from Raya. But Raya shows up and fixes it and everything, grabs the gem and gives it to Suzu, and then they ride off. And this power that Suzu gets from this section of the gem is she can create a fog, very thick fog, and they escape and they get back to the ship where Boone is, and they have the baby Noi and the Youngies, and joining them on this trip. And then they're making their way up to Spine, which is the next section. At this point in time, we see Namaari has returned to Fang. And on their way to Fang, they have to pass through basically what I've referred to as a dragon graveyard, because they reach this area where there have been so many of these dragons. And during the battle with the Droon, all of these dragons had been turned into statues, but none of them had come back. Even after they defeated the Droon the first time with, Suzu using her power, the other dragons hadn't come back yet. And what happens is, we see Namaari, Namaari and her group making their way through, and we see these giant, stone statues that look very similar to Suzu in her dragon form. And, they're stone and they're covered in vines and flowers and everything. And in Kumandra, one of the things that they do to show respect is they do this, and I think that's a representation of, the dragon gem, they do that symbol, and even, the filmmakers in the movie do the same thing a lot of the times, and they're at the end of the video calls, they would do this and everything a lot of the times, just because, that was a habit that they had from the movie and everything. And so we see that. And, Suzu gets back, or Namaari gets to her, gets back to Fang and talks with her mother. And they kind of have the largest gem piece that each of the chiefs are keeping the gem piece with them. And the chief, Chief Rana has hers on a staff and everything. And Fang, because the Droon cannot cross the river, can't cross water, have actually kind of isolated themselves on this little island section on a little peninsula that they turned into an island to protect themselves from the Droon, and they're at this point in time kind of the most prosperous of the kingdoms. And Suzu, or not Suzu, why do I keep going back to Suzu? And Namaari goes and talks with her mother, and her mother is very much kind of the very logical side of things. Don't make this decision just because you want to prove yourself that you're better than Raya. Show that you're, think with your head, not your heart type of thing. And Namaari convinces her that it's if we go to Fang, or if we go to Spine and get their dragon gem piece and get the dragon gem pieces from Raya, then we'll have all of them. And we'll be able to use them. And, so Namari, her mother grants her permission, and Namari and, a bunch of the army head off to Spine. And I don't know if we get an exact time frame for how long this has taken in regards to travel time and everything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if, this kind of takes place over the course of 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks or so. But on the ship, where, Boone's, restaurant ship, Noi and the Ungis are causing a lot of problems, which is not fun. And Sisu and Raya actually end up having several very interesting conversations throughout the course of this. Earlier, when they were on their way to Talon, they had asked, Boone states that like his family had been taken by the Droon. They'd been turned into stone at one point by the Droon, and that's why he never leaves the boat, because he's safe on the boat because of water. As long as there's water, he's safe. And he asked what the Droon are, and we get this very shifting character from Sisu, who's been very kind of like happy and smiley at this point in time, up to this point. And it's happening at night, like in the forest. You can see the Droon like moving around in the forest on the riverbanks and everything. And Sisu gives this great speech as to what the Droon are, and she says, and I'm paraphrasing this, and I apologize. Droon are a plague. They're the opposite of dragons. They want to hurt people. They were born out of human hatred and human discord. And they take and they took my family from me, my siblings. And, this is where Boone says, though they took my parents from me and everything. And we get this moment where, Sisu puts some flowers into the water, 4 of them, one for each, her 2 brothers and her 2 sisters. And then Boone puts several flowers into the water. And then Raya puts a flower into the water for her father. And we get this moment where it's the 3 of them are bonding. And when Raya had interacted with the baby Noi, the Khan baby, and the Ungis, they're like, why is your baby on its own? And like one of the monkeys kind of like subtly gave her the thing of, Noi's parents, or at the very least, her family, have been turned into stone by the Droon. So yeah, there's a lot of them have had their family taken from them at this point in time. And at this point in time, Raya and Sisu are talking again, and Sisu is just like, that woman was gonna, basically feed me to the Droon, and, everything. Like, Raya is just like, you can't trust people. The world's broken and you can't trust people. And, Sisu says maybe the world's broken because you don't trust anyone. Which is kind of, the lesson of this is, it's either the world is broken because you can't trust anyone, or the world is broken because you don't trust anyone. And if you don't trust anyone, then why would you expect anyone to trust you? And that's basically one of the lessons of the movie. And, they end up making their way to Spine, which is this very cold and frigid area, giant, snow-wrapped bamboo forests and everything. And Sisu is kind of just like, she wants to prove to Raya that, there are good people. There is still good in people. And she, kind of runs off to try to go take a gift to the Spine chief. And Raya and her get captured, and this is where we meet Tong. And Tong is this very big, gruff warrior from Spine. And he, has them captured and everything, and he keeps talking about like how he's gonna torture them and how it's gonna last so long and it's gonna be so horrible and everything like that. And then Boone and the Khan babies and Tuk Tuk the Khan baby and the Ungis show up, and they stop Tong, and they free Raya and such, and like they reveal that, oh, Fang is here, and it's Namari, and she's like, send out Raya. Send out Raya, fugitive from Heart, and, nobody in Fang, nobody in Spine will get hurt. And, like, Raya looks out, and she sees all of these statues that are the people of Spine. And she looks at Tongue, she's like, you're the last one left. And, he keeps denying that he's, he keeps, like he's okay with being, alone. He's not. He's very clearly not okay with being alone, but he keeps claiming that he is. Um, and what ends up happening is she's like, okay, Raya's like, okay, I'm going to distract them. You guys escape back to the boat, and then I'll follow you. And Raya goes out, and this is where we get like this great fight sequence to a degree. One of the good fight sequences between Raya and Namari. And it's like they're kind of bantering and everything, but Raya is more just trying to like distract Namari and push her buttons to keep Namari focused on her, so that way Sisu and the others can escape. And the others don't know that Sisu is dragon. She's been her human form this whole time. And they're working on escaping, and like Sisu looks back and she sees Namari about to hurt Raya, and she just to protect Raya, she dashes out and she changes into her dragon form in front of Namari and like fills the area with fog, and she like growls and stares down Namari. And we get this moment because it's just Sisu, her only interactions with Namari have kind of been negative, but just, seeing Namari, because she looks Namari directly in the eyes, and Namari just like sees her, and she just, we see kind of her tear up and kind of start crying, because it's like, Sisu is alive type of thing. And that's, that's more than she had ever hoped for in regards to that. And, Raya and the rest of them escape, and they're headed on their way back to, headed to Fang. And, Namari and her, her soldiers race back to Fang as well. And Raya kind of has to kind of apologize to the others for the fact that it was like, you didn't tell us that she was Sisu. And she's like, technically you always knew she was Sisu type thing. And, so we get that moment, and Tong reveals that he has the shard from Spine, and he gives that to Sisu, and Sisu takes in that power, and it's rain, and I think she says it's her big brother Pengu's magic. If I'm getting the names of the other dragons mixed up, I apologize. But she, now has the power to make it rain. And she starts, just making it rain all over the place, and we see her like jumping all over the place, like jumping, on the water platform she's making, and jumping around the ship and through the sky and everything. And like they're all just kind of happy, and there's just this moment of just like, maybe there is still hope for this after all. Maybe we can fix this. And they make their way to Fang, and or they're on their way to Fang, and what ends up happening is, Sisu and, they're trying to work on this plan of what they're, how they're going to get the last dragon gem piece to get to Sisu. And like, it's like, this plan of like sneaking in and everything, and then it just basically goes into like manga comic book moment where we have like Boone picturing himself like beating up a bunch of the bad guys, and Tong having his giant axe, and like they get Sisu the crystal, and she goes like, giant like kamehameha on the drone and everything, which is just funny. It's just so funny. But like we get that sequence and everything, and Raya's like, that's a very possible ninth option of a plan type thing. And like Sisu is just like, how about we do this? We infiltrated into Fang, we find Namari, and then we give her a present. And then we ask her to help us, and then she helps us, and then we're friends. And she's just like, yay! and Raya's like, no, that's not gonna work. And like, Tong and Boone and Noi are just like, no, that's not gonna work. You can't trust Fang. They're full of backstabbers. And Sisu at this point has just kind of like reached her limit with how much she dislikes how much Raya seems to not trust, very many people. And she like grabs Raya off the boat, and like she flies them to Heart. Back to Heart, backward to maybe Raya hasn't been in a long time. And, Sisu takes her into the temple where, the dragon gem had been for 500 years. And she's like, this is where it all happened. And she's like, yeah, I know this is where it all happened. I was there when it happened. And she's like, no, this is where it happened 500 years ago. And she takes Raya back and she reveals that there are statues here of her siblings, of her I think she had an older brother, older sister, and like a younger brother, younger sister. Um, and we get this flashback where we see Sisu telling, Raya the story about what had happened, that like we were surrounded by Droon and there was no hope left. And my big brother Pengu, you know, kind of created the basis for the orb and then put his magic into it. And then the others all put their magic into it. And then they gave it to me to release it, to, control it and let it loose and to stop the Droon. And, we get that image of like the Droon just being, knocked away and everything and being destroyed, but like her siblings, her brothers and sisters were still turned to stone. All the other dragons are still stone. The humans were brought back, but the dragons were not. And Raya, is kind of befuddled by this, and like they go down and like Raya sees the statue of her father, her stone father, and same place he'd been for the past 6 years. And she's like, do you think he'd recognize me? And Susu's like, I think he would. You've been doing everything you can to try to help make things better here. Putting a little more faith in other people might be a wise decision, but you're trying. And Raya says, okay, we'll go with your plan. We'll go with your plan of giving Namaari the gift. And they do the gift, and she sends Noi and the Ungis to like infiltrate their way into the palace, into the Fang palace, and find their way to Namaari's room. How Raya knows where Namaari's room is left up for debate. But it's also like she would have had to have stolen the dragon scroll at some point, so maybe Namaari had the dragon scroll in her room, so Raya had to like sneak around Fang a bunch and like found that at some point, possibly. And so Noi goes there and she like delivers, silently delivers the gift. And Namaari has talked with her mother, and Namaari is Verana is just like, yes, you saw Sisu. And, if the world is fixed, that's great. But then everyone's going to blame us for everything that happened. Because, by technicality, you are kind of one of the reasons that everything went worse. But still, but if we had the dragon and if we had the gems and if we were the ones that reunited all of them and everything and like fixed everything, then we would be forgiven for what happened 6 years ago. And, Namaari goes to her room, but she finds the gift and she agrees to, wanting to go and, meet up, with, Raya and Sisu and the others. During this time frame, while they're waiting, Raya is, on the houseboat. They're all on the houseboat talking. And Boone and Tong are arguing over food, because food. And what ends up happening is Raya basically ends up doing what her father did, because like Boone and Tong are arguing. It's just like, you have the taste buds of a tall baby. You dress like a tall baby. And I just love those. I love the arguments that they get into here. It's so fun. And we see that Raya comes over and she like mixes in a little bit of like the stuff from the different tribes, and it mixes together great into the soup, the same soup that her father had made at the beginning of the movie. And they all sit and they eat, and then they get the signal that yes, Namaari will meet with you, and they go and they meet with her, and she has the dragon gem piece, and Raya is like, she tells Sisu, just stay back until we confirm that she's on our side, and then you can go forward. Type of thing. It's like, we're giving it a test, and we're gonna see what happens, type of a thing. And for the past 6 years, Raya's been on her own except for Tuk Tuk. And, the one time that she tried to make a friend from outside of her kingdom in the form of Namaari, it didn't go well. And I don't blame Raya to a degree for not having this amount of trust in her, not wanting to show as much trust in Namaari as she possibly could. But, Raya and, Namari are kind of like staring each other down. And Namari, has like given them the gem, or like has the gem there, and like Sisu goes out and she's like ready to pick up the gem. And then Namari has a crossbow pointed at Raya. And Sisu tries to talk her down, and just things go haywire. And the crossbow goes off, and Sisu gets hit with the crossbow, with one of the arrows. And she falls into the river. Namari flees, running back, grabs the dragon piece, her gem piece, and like runs back towards Fang. And the river starts to recede. Like, see, I'm about to say wormholes and whirlpools. That's wrong. Whirlpools start to appear all over the place, and like the river starts to recede. And Raya is just kind of on this vendetta path. She's grabbed her sword and she's just like literally heading straight into Fang, because she's just like, everything's going downhill. This girl has cost me my father and my country and my tribe, and now she's cost me like my best friend. And Raya is just like one track mind right now. And Tong puts it in a very good way, very shortly in the movie. He's like, she's blinded by her rage. And, she makes her way into the castle where her and Namari start fighting. And this is where we get them knock down, drag out, no holds barred, not holding anything back, nothing. Just fight between the two of them. With, Namari using her weapons and Raya having her sword. And they're just going all out over the throne room. We see that Namari's mother has been turned into a statue. And the rest of the group, the rest of them still have like their dragon gem pieces. And Raya has her dragon gem piece. And like, so they have like I think it's like, they basically have like the representation of like each of them holding the dragon gem piece that was from their country. So like Boone's holding the one from Tail, and, Noi has the one from Talon, and, Tong has the one from Spine and everything. And, Raya still has the piece from Heart. And because, the Droon made their way onto the island where, Fang had been, because the water is receding. So Boone and Tong and Noi and the Youngies are just like, okay, we have to at least do something, because there's still people here that are being hurt by the Droon and being trapped and everything, and we need to do something to help them. So their pieces still have the ability to like ward off the Droon. So they keep, warding the Droon off by, forcing it off of the pieces and like helping people escape. And like Tuk Tuk is there helping them, and like they're getting all of these people out of the Fang, out of the area, and getting them to, safer place and everything, saving them from like collapsed areas and everything like that. And, this is when they see Raya and Namari fighting, and this is when Tong says, she's blinded by her rage at, the one that slayed Sisu. And Raya is very much kind of just like one track mind at this point in time. Namari is kind of one track mind as well, because it's like, my mother is stone because of what happened. And like now my country, my tribe is like falling around me. My home is falling around me, type thing. So they're both basically in this moment where it's just, they're both very, very much, one track minds. And we get these great fight sequence, because like they're, they both have like different styles that they use. Like each of the different places have like different styles of fighting that they use, and I love it. Based off of different places from like Southeast Asia, and different places like that. And at one point, Namari gets knocked to the ground, and she says something, and that she's lost everything, and she doesn't care anymore if Raya kills her anymore, because I'm as much at fault for what happened to Sisu as you are, and like my mother's stone, and I just don't care anymore. And like Raya is just about to basically kill Namari, and she stops. And we have this moment where she like stops and she like looks at her reflection in her sword. And I do very much similar to like the reflections that we get in Mulan a lot of the time, when we see, Mulan reflected in her sword at various points in time throughout the course of the movie, and, at other points in time. And Raya runs off, and she goes and she starts helping Boone and the rest of her friends, ward off the Droon so that way the others can escape. And what ends up happening is, just, Namari ends up being there as well, and she's like helping ward off the Druin to help, Tuk Tuk gets out with like the last people from a Fang that haven't been turned into stone, and like they're escaping. And the rest of them basically end up getting like trapped because there's like collapse thing that happens, and like all the five of them and the three Ungis are like all kind of trapped together, and like the Druin are like circling around them. And Raya has this memory where she's remembering what Sisu had said, is the world broken because you don't trust anyone, or is the world broken because you can't trust anyone, or because you don't trust anyone? My siblings put their faith in me, and that gave me the confidence for what I had to do. And what happens is Raya says, or like she, her father's words and Suzu's words of like, but somebody has to be the one to take the first step. And Raya does this. She takes the first step and she says, we all have to put our pieces together. Everybody give your pieces to Namari. And she gives her piece to Namari. And then she steps back, and then she gets turned into stone. And the others on just like moment of faith, moment of truth. If we're not worth trying to fix this now, then what's worth going on ahead for? And Boone gives Namari his piece, and then he goes over and he gets turned to stone next to Raya. And then Noi and Tong and the Youngis, they give, Namari their pieces, and then they walk over and like they get turned into stone next to Raya. And Namari is like, she has all the pieces, and there's like this crumbled piece of like pillar or something in the middle, and she like gets the pieces put back together into the right to make the gem again, make it whole and everything, and puts them all back together, and like it's the pieces are slowly glowing less and less and less. And Namari, the Druin are all around them and everything, obviously, and like Namari walks over and she gets turned to stone, just like the others have been. And the crystal, it's like we see it just gets so dark inside of this, like basically they're like in a cave area again, collapsed area, and like the crystal kind of goes out, and then the light comes back into the crystal and glows more, and it does, it releases the power that had been in it for so long. It fully releases it, because I kind of look at this as, Sisu states that the Druin are the opposite of dragons. They're this plague that is created by humanity's hatred and distrust of each other. And COVID reference, anyone? Made by this hatred of each other. And, the dragons worked together to make the gem, and they gave it to Sisu, and she released the power, and it freed all the humans, but it didn't free the dragons. And in this case, we see, the light forming out from it and like freeing, it makes it start raining, and the rain is what releases everyone from like their stone sleeping positions, their resting positions. And it, it like rains down on them, and it like releases them. And, I'm assuming that it said that like there's this like huge like just raining all over the kingdom at the same time, all into all the other lands, freeing, Noi's mother and Boone's family, and Tong's family, and freeing them from these stone sleeps that they've been in for the past however long amount of time. And like we see, their group, changing, saving, healing, being fixed and everything. And then we see all of the dragons showing back up. And, we see, the dragon, Suzu's siblings kind of at the front of the pack, and like we see them all showing up again, and like they're, running around, Fang, where, the dragon gem was. And they, run around in the water, and like I guess they do like a dragon form of a ritual, and they bring Sisu back. They heal Sisu, they fix her, they bring her back from the dead, they resurrect her, whatever you want to go with. And she's healed, and she's reunited with her siblings and with her friends, and then she's, you know, reunited with Raya and the other ones, and you know, and then, you know, Suzu and, you know, Namari kind of weren't going to meet much better this time, and we get this moment where it's just like all of them together, and you know, it's like you know, everybody's okay now, and like we see these, you know, all the different, you know, Noi goes home and she sees her mother. She's reunited with her mother. And, you know, Boone goes home and he's reunited with his parents and his sister, and I'm assuming his grandparents or so. And, you know, Tong returns to his village up in, you know, up in Spine, and he's reunited with his, you know, kind of wife and child and his family and everything. And his child is like the same age as Noi. And Raya returns to Heart, and she's, you know, she's reunited with her father after 6 years, and you know, Suzu's with her, and you know, she's also brought, you know, everybody else, like the different ones that were her, you know, that traveled with her, and you know, Namari and her mother, and like the others are all there, like all these other members from the other tribes are all there, and you know, it's like we can be Kumandra again, and you know, we're, you know, we can be Kumandra again because that's what we were before. And if we just stop ignoring the, you know, if we no, you know, it's like we don't ignore the differences, but we see what there is that's the same, then we can heal and we can make things better. And I love how they pulled that off in the movie and everything. And then, of course, we get the end credit sequence that's just kind of fun. You know, they all head in to go eat and everything. And, like, we see them kind of all, like, you know, having fun together. And we get the song that's at the end of the movie, which I think is just called, I want to say it's just called Kumandra, but I could be wrong about that. But there is a song. And I just love how they pull this off. I loved it. And I did love the relationship that they showed between Raya and Namari. And I'm well aware of the fact that there is a lot of fan fiction already out there about Raya and Namari. Fan fiction, fan art, fan theories. Going into the cast. So the cast, we have Kelly Marie Tran as Raya. People would also know her as Rose Tico from Star Wars. So, you know, she's, you know, introduced in, I think, the Last Jedi movie, and then she introduced in the first one. I don't remember. She's introduced in the Star Wars movies, in the sequel trilogy, of course. And she's there, and she plays Rose. And Kelly Marie Tran has also stated that, like, she kind of played Raya as being gay, as being a lesbian, so that also kind of feeds into that. And it's like Disney hasn't acknowledged it one way or the other, but like she stated in other interviews in regards to that. We have Awkwafina as Suzu, who also has another Disney connection, of course, as Katie from Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, which she's just basically like Awkwafina playing Awkwafina no matter what role she's in, which is just funny. And I've also seen her in, you know, Crazy Rich Asians, and she's also in Ocean's 8, with the whole female cast, which I loved. We have Isaac Wang as Boone. Don't really know if he's been in anything else. Don't think so. We have Gemma Chan as Namari. And she also plays Cersei in Eternals. She's also Minerva in Captain Marvel. It's a small bit character. And then she's also in, you know, Crazy Rich Asians. We have Daniel Day Kim as Chief Benja. He's, of course, I believe he's on Hawaii 5-0, I believe, at the moment. He's also been in several other things. We have Benedict Wong as Tong, and he is, of course, Wong from Marvel, from Doctor Strange and everything. So he's been in those. We have Sandra Oh as Chief Verana, and she is, of course, Namari's mother. Sandra Oh has been in so many different things. She's, of course, mostly known for, you know, being on Grey's Anatomy. She's also in Killing Eve. She's also the principal in the first Princess Diaries movie. So she's been in several things. We have Thilan Tran as Little Noi, so the little girl. It's not really too much else. We have Alan Tudyk as Tuk Tuk, because it's just like, well, let's put him in here because we need him to do something. Because he's like he's referred to as like the good luck charm as of recently, which is just kind of fun. In regards to trivia, So throughout the movie, there are some words in Kumandran language that are commonly used. Ba is, of course, father. Binturi is used as an insult because both Namari and Raya call each other Binturi throughout the course of the movie at various points in time. Depla is kind of more of the it's a version of, it's derived from the Vietnamese dep, which is translates to beautiful. So it's like someone is they use it for referring to someone as like their best friend for like depla. And this toy, uh, TOI, is kind of like oh my type thing. Um, Draw is then of course dragon. And then throughout the course of the movie, there's of course several firsts in regards to this. Of course, the first original, Disney's original animated movies, storyline since Moana, because Frozen is still kind of based a little, Frozen 2 is still kind of based on, um, you know, the Snow Queen and everything. Ralph Breaks the Internet is still based on the original. Ralph Breaks the Internet. Raya. Well, it is slightly derived from different things that are part of Southeast Asian culture. It's not really based on any specific story. Dragons are very important in Southeast Asian culture, but there's not like this exact type of a tale in it. And it is the first Disney animated movie to be produced and released during the COVID pandemic. And of course, it is the first one to be entirely animated from home. So, to the animators and the directors and the producers and the actors for dealing with that. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah. I think they did a great job. I think they did an amazing job in regards to the movie. It's beautifully done. It's beautifully animated. The voice cast is so great. The music in it is great. The action in it is great. I loved it. And the next one that at some point in time I will be doing in regards to Disney specific reviews will of course be when I do Encanto at some point in time. I don't know if I'll be doing like an exact review of that like once I go see it in the theaters, or if I'm gonna wait until it goes to till it's available on home video. I don't know yet. I haven't made that decision yet. But this is my Christmas time, so I'm gonna pop up with a couple of different Christmas type videos. So that'll be that. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a happy and safe holiday, season. Bye. Oh, wait. Berry cookie. Maybe it's broken because you don't trust anyone, but sometimes you just have to take the first step.